All right, guys, welcome back. So today we're talking about like what you're listening to. So it's really important to really fill your mind and fill your head with the things that are important to believe in, right? And fill your mind with goodness, right? Because there's so much stuff out there, like the media, the news, like, you know, if you look at the news every day, you're like, okay, the world is falling apart. Like, what day is it not falling apart according to the media, right? So it's really important to fill your mind and really replace some of those things that you really don't need in your mind. Especially as a real estate investor, it's super important to understand what other people are doing and how they're thinking and what they're doing, what plans they're making and what moves they're making, what's working in the market, what's not working. So podcasts are a great way to fill your mind because it's important to listen to amazing people. So some of the podcasts I listen to is Real Estate Uncensored. I listen to Bigger Pockets. I listen to Tony Robbins. I listen to Les Brown because he's a phenomenal speaker, great motivational guy. I listen to Myron Golden, who is like teaches business from the Bible. I listen to other podcasts, like other financial podcasts too, because with real estate, not only for me at least, like I want to understand what other markets are doing so I could see how it's going to affect real estate. So another podcast I listen to is the Ed Mylett Show. Ed Mylett is a great speaker as well. Phenomenal podcast, and I just enjoy listening to it. I listen to Jocko, right? Jocko is a good one, right? And a lot of people are like, oh man, like he's tough. Yeah, like he is, but it's like it just really helps wake you up sometimes and it helps like get you in the right frame of mind. I listen to John Maxwell podcast, right? Those are all cool things to listen to. And, you know, the Confident Closer, I listen to Gary Vee sometimes. Like Gary Vee is good. The One Thing podcast. Those are all things that are going to help you on your journey. Now, some of the books that I recommend, I'm just pulling up my Audible here, but it's like, I really love, it's called The Go-Giver. And it's a phenomenal book that it's a great premise. It's probably my favorite book of all time. My favorite, like, you know, business book. But in terms of real estate books, I highly recommend listening to MREI, Millionaire Real Estate Investor. That's a huge one because it teaches you how to earn $1 million in real estate as a real estate investor. Another book that I highly recommend is Richest Man in Babylon. Like, you see how really money works because it's important to understand those things. And, you know, like, while, you know, you might have a hunger to go out and listen to, you know, real estate books and whatnot, I think it's important to also develop yourself personally. So when you develop yourself personally, like, you actually grow into the thing that you've been created for, that you are going to do, that you will create. So we have to get better before, like, we get the thing, we get the reward, right? So it's really important to understand to be that person, grow yourself, you know, mentally, physically, spiritually. You know, like it's really important to just grow yourself and really work on yourself. And, you know, I've spent some years of my life like where I've done nothing but just consume like so much learning, like, and it's so cool because the next year that sets you up to be so much more successful because you're sowing, right? You're sowing into yourself, and then like the next year is like harvest, right? Like, and you know, so it's really cool like when you invest in yourself. So some of the books that I highly recommend is definitely MREI, The One Thing. And then a great negotiating book is called Never Split the Difference. And it's by Chris Voss, FBI negotiator. Phenomenal book because, you know, like for him, it's like you can't, like, Never Split the Difference is like, the premise was like, essentially like, as an FBI negotiator, you can't tell the bad guys like, hey, send me out half of the body and you keep the other half, right? So you don't split the difference. You understand how to get the entire like portion of it. The other thing too is another good book was called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Phenomenal book. Listen to it. I highly recommend Audible on that one because it's a great listen. Like, it's so good. But it talks about how the devil really like uses like your mind to just like really trap you and hold you back. Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan, like, phenomenal book because like me personally, like, I have this I want to look backwards. Like, I want to say like I mean I want to look forward and say, well, I should have been here by now. But like when you're comparing yourself to that gap, like where I should have been or think you should have been, like, you lose out because like when you look backwards though, like Dan Sullivan talks about in the book, you see how much gain you've made, right? Like, so even an example of like, when you were making minimum wage or your first job to when you got your first real job, it's an exponential gain, right? And you realize the timelines keep getting shorter and shorter. Those are great books. Think and Grow Rich, obviously. Start with Why. That's a great book to figuring out your why. Great book. How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's like you're going to understand later on in this course that it's really important to have a great network and have amazing people around you. So that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, phenomenal book. Leaders Eat Last, another great book. And Rich Dad Poor Dad. So that's probably one of my favorite real estate books, like Rich Dad Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki, love him, phenomenal. And really like Richest Man in Babylon, 5 a.m. Club if you're all about the morning. But those are just some of the books and podcasts that I highly recommend. I hope this video was helpful. I know it was. It's going to change your life, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care.